the most anticipated, big budget, science fiction blockbuster of 2021 has just hit theaters on October 21st, 2021, and I saw it last night. I'm going to get right into it. This is going to be a spoiler-free review, so I'm not going to get into too many of the plot twists or anything like that, but let me just give you a quick background. I'm not a Dune fan going into this movie. I, in fact, have never really read the books. I'm kind of familiar with what Dune is about for the most part, but I've never really read the books. As well, there was a 1984 adaptation of this book into a movie starring Kyle MacLachlan and Sting. And I'll admit, as a teenager, I attempted to watch half of the movie and I got bored and I stopped watching it. So when I heard they were remaking Dune into a huge motion picture, I was kind of on the fence because, I didn't have a really good experience with Dune in the past. But you know what? It looked really cool. I saw the trailer for it and it just looked fantastic. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go into this movie and give it a shot. And we went and saw the movie last night. And I got to say, before I do my review, it's interesting because I heard prior to going into this movie, they weren't sure if you needed to be a Dune fan. For example, did you need to read the books before? Did you need to know what sort is going on before you go into this movie? Because if you don't, and it's really tailored towards the fans, you might be downright confused. Well, I'm going to say right now, I went in not knowing what the movie was going to be about, and I fully understood it, and I fully enjoyed it. So let's get into it. First off, Dune is based on a science fiction novel by Frank Herbert, and it was brought out in 1965. The premise of the story takes place 20,000 years from now in the future, in the year 10191. And it's basically a feudal interstellar society out there in the universe where each society is referred to as a house. And a young character by the name of Paul Atreides, whose family is tasked by the Emperor of the universe to take management of a specific planet called Arrakis. Now, Arrakis is a desert wasteland, as you'll see in the trailer. That's why they call it Dune, which consists of a valuable drug known as spice. Now, this valuable drug, spice, is used to prolong life, bestow vitality and awareness, and a prescience of humans. And those that have or possess spice are considered to have wealth. So it's a very important drug to obtain, and it's specifically on this desert planet. So that's kind of the premise of the story. And going forward, obviously the family gets there. There's battles with other houses, and a war erupts. And that's kind of the premise of Dune, I guess, in the book itself. And again, I'm going to mention they tried to make a movie in 1984 called Dune. It wasn't well reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes. I personally have never seen the movie in its entirety because it just bored me. But the actors in that movie would be Kyle MacLachlan portray the young Paul Atreides. Patrick Stewart, also known as Captain Picard, portrayed Gurney, kind of the bodyguard type guy in the film. And Sting was in the movie and portrayed a character in that movie as well. So let's get into this movie. First of all, it's directed by French-Canadian director Denis Villeneuve. Probably saying his name incorrectly there. But in any event, he directed Blade Runner 2049, which was a sequel to Blade Runner. He's known for very visually stunning movies. The music score. Hans Zimmer, the legendary Hans Zimmer, did the musical score for this motion picture. He also did the musical score for No Time to Die, which I quite enjoyed too, and as well as the Dark Knight trilogy and all the big kind of movies. He's behind this wicked, gives a wicked soundtrack for this movie. I'll get into the stars of this movie. It's an all-star cast. It's huge. We have young actor Timothee Chalet portrays the primary character of this movie, young Paul Atreides. Oscar Isaac portrays his father, Leto Atreides. Rebecca Ferguson's in this movie. She's well known in the Mission Impossible, latest versions of those movies. Portrays Lady Jessica. We have Jason Momoa, aka Aquaman, portraying Duncan, Idaho. Josh Brolin takes on the role as Gurney Halleck, kind of the bodyguard, helps train Paul in The Art of Fighting, etc. Javier Bardem is in this movie, a character by the name of Stilgar. Zendaya, she's in this movie. She portrays Shani, and she's mostly shown in a lot of flashbacks, which I'll get into. Now, the primary villain of this movie, when you see him actually on a still, like an actual photo still, he doesn't look threatening at all. But in the movie, downright chilling. The character of Vladimir Harko, the primary villain in this movie, there's so many prosthetics, makeup, etc. It's difficult to figure out who the actor that portrays him is, but his voice is very distinct. And it's Stellan Skarsgard, very good actor. He's well known for playing the Professor in the Thor movies, the Marvel Universe. Dave Bautista is basically his right-hand man, Glosso Raban. And then we've got Polka Dot Man from Suicide Squad, David Dasmoshain, portraying Peter DeVries, and does a fantastic job as well. And that's just the main like big star cast. I mean, there's a huge cast. By all means, this is what's considered an epic tale of a movie, similar to the Lord of the Rings trilogy or even the Star Wars epic. It's just a huge movie. It's not a small movie. It's big on a scale by all means. Yeah, I'm just gonna get without getting into any spoilers here. It is a visually stunning movie. It is visually stunning. The soundtrack is pulsating. Hans Zimmer's score just booms throughout the theater. As a matter of fact, in the theater I was in, I thought maybe they upgraded their stereo system here. This is crazy. But it's truly a pulsating score. They bring you into this world, like into this universe, I should say, but onto the specific planet. You feel like you're there. And again, not going into this movie, not having any knowledge base of this series, they explain it well to you. They really tell the story well, so you follow it. The other things I liked about this movie, it's unique, is there's so many cool things that you've never seen in any other movies. And I'll use one example. It's not a spoiler because you see it in the trailers, etc. But in order to survive on this planet or kind of roam around on this Dune-like planet, you have to have like essentially a survival suit due to the heat, lack of water, etc. They explain in this movie to you as the audience, as well as the characters in the movie, how the specific suit works, and it makes sense. But they do it in a non-patronizing way. They're not treating you like you're a child when they're explaining it. They do it in a very methodical way, but they do it where you understand it, but it's also, you see the characters understanding it. So you're not lost in this movie. Because when you see the trailer, you go, boy, this looks confusing. But in a matter of fact, they explain it the way through. Now, this is what's considered a slow burn movie. It takes a while to fully get everything together and understand. Having said that, it's not a boring slow burn movie by any means. It's a very good, well-paced movie with visually stunning scenery, the effects, the characters you actually care about. And when the action happens, I mean, there is action in this movie by all means, but it's not an action roller coaster of a movie. It's not your typical Star Wars or Indiana Jones movie. But when the action does happen, it's well shot, well done, and you actually feel the peril of these characters, and you are on the edge of your seat. And again, being in the trailer, not giving anything away, one of the main monsters on this planet is the sandworm, and it is brutal. It is huge. It is truly frightening. And you think about that as a filmmaker, how would you be? How are you able to make a sandworm scary to an audience in today's day? The way they filmed it, the soundtrack, the effects, boy, it scared the heck out of me. It was like watching Jaws for the first time, essentially. Yeah, I gotta say, like, you are truly brought into this world, and the storyline is riveting. The movie is 2 hours and 35 minutes, but it's not too long, but it's not too short. It goes at a very good pace. I never found myself bored in this movie. I was intrigued. The characters were well done. The characters in the movie get pretty decent screen time, I think, and they each bring something to their character. Each character is very interesting. Obviously, Timothee Chalamet is Paul Atreides. most of the movie is focused on him and his progression through this film. He does a bang up job. Like, it's really interesting. Some of the things with their training that they do, and they use a lot of knives. And it's just the local people on Dune that are from that area all have bright blue eyes, and that's explained too. It's really cool. I just have to say the main villain here, Vladimir Harko, is as chilling as when I first saw Darth Vader as a child, the classic Darth Vader, that is. He is menacing. He is one of the best villains I've seen in a movie, and especially in a science fiction movie, in a very, very long time. He does a bang up job in this movie. I gotta say, it just blew me away. And we went and saw the movie, and all of us enjoyed it last night. And none of us are Dune fans. We can't wait for the other movie. Which brings me to the biggest con of all. Okay, first of all, great movie, well worth seeing. You have to see it on the big screen. But I'm going to jump to some cons. But it's not really a con about this movie. What it is the filmmakers, for whatever reason, they make it clear this is part one. So I guess there's a huge Dune book. This is exactly the halfway point where it ends. And it abruptly ends. You want more, but it ends. But unlike many of the other movies like Lord of the Rings or any of the other movies that tie together, there were no plans for a part two, which is kind of silly. I'm not sure if they were scared of the pandemic, the movie wouldn't make enough money for a part two, but they never made a part two. That's still up in the air. So if they don't make a part two, as a standalone movie, you're half fulfilled. You need a part two. It's almost not fair to make a part two. So I'm not sure what the studios were thinking, Warner Brothers, Legendary Pictures and stuff, when they didn't make a part two. Because it's silly. They should have filmed both movies back to back and made a point of saying, listen, part two will come out 1 year from this release date. So that it has time to get on digital. It has time to reach the Blu-ray section eventually. The other con I have, and I don't know, I'm just speculating, I could be totally wrong, but it's another movie that the Americans have made a decision, we're going to release this for free on our American HBO Max channel for those subscribers. Now, I think that's a huge, huge mistake. Similar to Black Widow, similar to other movies that have done that too, where you're not going to get that maximum box office draw profit-wise because you're releasing it for free. I mean, up here in Canada, we have no choice. We don't have that option of seeing it for free on HBO Max in Canada at this point. So we had to go to the theaters, which is a good thing because this movie should not be seen for the first time on a small screen by any means. It's one of those movies where you're gypping yourself by seeing this on a tiny, tiny TV. Even if you had a 60 or 70 inch, 100 inch, doesn't matter. This needs to be seen on a big screen in the movie theater because you're only robbing yourself of the experience. So to release this for free on HBO Max where people can simply watch it on their iPhone or iPad is ridiculous. So I'm not sure what they were thinking when they went that route. I mean, we'll have to see what the box office tallies this weekend, but I'm concerned, because that leads into my first con, that if they don't bring in the anticipated money they should from the box office because of their choice for HBO Max in the United States, which is a pretty big country, will that affect them going in to make part two? I hope not, because part two needs to be made. So I guess the weird thing with this movie, the movie's fantastic, but if they don't make a part two, it doesn't serve a purpose for this movie, if that makes any sense, without getting into spoilers. So essentially it's like taking a really good movie, making half of that movie, putting it in the theater, and then saying we're not sure if we're going to release the other half. Makes no sense. So I'm assuming they're going to go ahead with part two. But then it's going to take years for production stuff. They should have just filmed it back to back. That's my biggest con with this movie. But the movie itself is fantastic. I highly recommend this movie. You do not need to do any research on Dune. You do not have to worry about not being a Dune fan going into this. I assure you, by the time you leave, you most likely will now become a Dune fan. As a matter of fact, I raced out to my public library today, was able to find a Dune graphic novel, which I'm going to dive into later on today. Movie's fantastic. Effects are stunning. Soundtrack is pulsating. It is a movie that is very original, even though it's based on an older book in the 1960s. But I'm going to point something out here. It was interesting. My daughter brought it up. She at one point said, this seems like a little bit of a copy of Star Wars, given the Sand People and stuff from the classic 1977 movie. But the interesting thing with that is this was written well before Star Wars was. Not saying Star Wars copied them, but it's interesting because a few people might say, well, it seems like a bit of a copy of Star Wars. Keep in mind, this whole storyline came out well before George Lucas's film. So, no, it's not a copy whatsoever. And it is original. I don't think it's that much like Star Wars. Its scale, its grand scale might be similar to Star Wars. But I gotta say, this looks interesting. I mean, the fact that this could very well happen 20,000 years from now is, it's interesting on its own merit. I really enjoyed this movie. Again, I can't get any spoilers. I might do a spoiler-free review down the road, or a spoiler review, I should say. But the visual effects are stunning. The characters are stunning. And it's not a predictable movie. You don't know when one of the main characters is going to meet their demise. So it's original in that state of mind. Highly recommend it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give Dune a 9 out of 10. It is very, very well done. It's definitely a movie I will purchase on Blu-ray. And I might wait a few weeks. I might even see it a second time in theaters. It was that stunning. It's well worth the money to go see it in the big screen. Anyways, tell me what you thought of Dune. Let me know if you're a Dune fan like previous to this movie and what you thought coming out of the movie. Like and subscribe my channel. See you later.